Hey everybody, Dr. Ray Blue here, and this is my movie review of Captain Fantastic, directed by Matt Ross, and starring Viggo Mortensen, Frank Langella, Kathryn Hahn, and Steven Zahn. The film centers around a single father and his children living somewhere in the isolated forests of Oregon. Viggo Mortensen plays Ben Cash, a dedicated outdoorsman who has chosen an extreme lifestyle for him and his children, living off the land without electricity or really any modern conveniences, and homeschooling his 6 children who range in age from 7 to 18. Their days are spent exercising, learning to fight, hunting, rock climbing, reading and understanding literature, and celebrating the birthday of Noam Chomsky, rather than Christmas like most other people. The film opens to a deer being hunted by mud-covered eldest son, Bodavon, played by George McKay, which turns out to actually be his rite of passage to adulthood. After killing the deer, the rest of his family emerges from the forest covered in mud and looking like a scene out of Lord of the Flies. Bo takes a bite of the deer's raw heart and is marked by his father with its blood, per the Native American tradition. Afterwards, they wash all the mud and blood off themselves in a river, and the entire scene really becomes a metaphor for the entire film. Ben's wife has passed away, leaving him to raise their 6 children, while being blamed for her death by her wealthy parents who never approved of the lifestyle the two had chosen. The parents won't allow Ben to be at the funeral of his wife, and the film becomes a journey of discovery and awakening as they make their way to the funeral. There are really no heroes or villains in the story, just the complications of family trying to make the best of life for the children, and the film really shows the conflict of parenting, the choices we make as parents and the world around us, and how much of it we choose to let in and how much we're not able to choose what gets in. Captain Fantastic is a title that may leave some with the wrong expectations, as the film is much more a social commentary than any kind of superhero movie. It keeps you fascinated by the family and the way they are living a life, teetering at times between a naturalist philosophy of isolation like Henry Thoreau and a possible cultist, radical, libertarian, leftist fanaticism that may come to mind when one hears homeschooled. In many ways, the family comes across more like the Swiss Family Robinson castaways than they do some hippie commune, and the film is very good at portraying the family's alternate reality with charm, intelligence, compassion, and a self-aware humor. Aside from materialism and consumerism, the family's greatest enemy seems to be religious convention. As Ben reminds his kids after they comment on the outside world's obesity, "We don't make fun of people, except Christians." By far one of my favorite films of the year, if not the last decade really when it comes to dramatic films with social commentary. The film is hard-hitting and yet somehow also lovely and subtle with its message. It's not political or ideological or some left-wing fantasy like one may assume, but it's something more honest where even the father himself acknowledges he's gone too far and in some ways is a little bit crazy. The film does an amazing job showing children as intelligent individuals and not the patronizing nonsense that programmed mindless adolescence has become. It shows children as young people, learning their world and having that learning be based on the limits of those who are teachers. An example of those limits is shown in a scene where Ben's children and his sister's family. The children of his sister and her husband are clearly less educated and, more importantly, less passionate about learning. The interaction between the two families really gives insight into the potential of children and their education and the respect and relationships parents have with their children and how it can be forged. With numerous references to philosophy, sociology, political science, and such, the film showed the potential in children and education, particularly when compared to the politically correct, good little citizen techno-hyperbole that seems to be stuffed down the throats of youth today. Kids are smart and they know when adults are full of shit, and honesty is truly the best policy at times, especially when dealing with the curiosity of youth. The young cast is amazing, and all do a wonderful job portraying young minds that are able to handle the topics of the film and master the science and level of conversation that is consistent throughout the story. Director Matt Ross, who played, well, one of the creepy guys in American Psycho, and the snitch in Homegrown, grew up in a hippie commune and brought a lot of that to the film with humor and respect. I cried as many times as I laughed while watching the film, and that to me is a true sign of great filmmaking. It really was a wonderfully balanced film with intelligent social commentary as well as comedy and tragedy, and tells a wonderful story of a family finding their place in the world. This film definitely should reside in any home movie collection worth its salt. Thank you for watching. Please comment below, hit that like button, tell your friends, and help spread the madness.